everybody to the Charlie West Wrestling Show. I'm here again with the Supreme Aussie Blaze, here to talk about all the things that we love or sometimes maybe don't quite love about wrestling. So today we're going to do another top 10 list, yeah?
Let's do it.
Absolutely, and our topic for today's list is our top 10 most underrated wrestlers. Now, did you have any particular way that you decided that you were going to class what is underrated?
Yeah, I looked at guys who either never got to the top. Some people might, you might know they're good, but for whatever reason, they never got to that top level. Or there's one on here that got to the top level, but everyone thinks they're shit, and I have a different perspective. And I'm always right, so you guys, all the marks out there, can just shut up and learn from me.
There's also like some Steves, some Allisons, some Freddys out there.
There's a lot, but the marks are the worst.
Fair enough. For me, I sort of went with the approach of people that I believe are better than what I believe people portray them as being.
Yeah.
So that could be people that didn't become champion that should have become champion, or it could just be people where someone says this person is a bad wrestler. And I think they are a good.
And they got a really bad rap.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of that,
or that they're not a good sports entertainer, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I have a sort of range of different people.
Okay.
These are all people that I feel could have either achieved more or are better than their reputation precedes them as being.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so number 10. This is actually someone that we were talking about before we filmed this.
Okay.
Because you were asking, have I ever seen this person wrestle? What do I think of them? Do you know them? And I was like, yeah, we're about to record a list in a minute, and I think that one of the best things about AEW, especially in its first year or so, was Darby Allin.
Yeah, you think he's underrated? Yeah.
I think so, because I think people look at Darby Allin and go, look, he jumps off the high thing. Isn't that cool? But when you watch him wrestle, he's not just a guy that jumps off the high thing. I think if you made Darby Allin and say, you can't climb a thing, you can't throw yourself at a thing, you've just got to do a match inside these ropes.
Nah, then he's just a boring little goth kid.
But I think he can do it.
Right? Yeah, I think you want him to do that. I'll agree, because at first I'm like, why do I care about this 15-year-old gothic kid? But when you watch him, he's small, but the way he throws his body, the way he hits with impact.
Yeah,
I don't hate that one.
And there's psychology to what he does as well. You can see that there's an idea of the kayfabe version of him is thinking about, how do I hurt this person?
I'm going to take this risk, and if I end up getting hurt, if it doesn't work, it's a high risk. It's called high risk for a reason.
Yeah. Whereas when you take someone like the idiot Spanish sounding guy that's also on that show.
Andrade?
No,
Sammy Guevara.
Sammy Guevara, where all of his spots seem to just be, I'm going to jump off a thing and one of us may die. It doesn't really matter to me who.
It doesn't matter if I'm a heel or if I'm a heel, I'm still trying to get the biggest pop of the night.
Yeah. And Darby Allin stuff gets pops, but I feel like the moves are done for reasons.
It does it makes more sense. Yeah. At least his matches make sense. He's grown on me. At first I was like, I don't really see anything about this guy.
Yes. And I think that he is underrated for what he actually does in a wrestling ring.
I'm never, if I see he's in the main event, I'm always like, whatever, but I get into a lot of his matches, surprisingly. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Okay.
All right, my number 10. A lot of people know this guy is a great worker, a great guy behind the scenes, but only the hardcore wrestling fan is going to know this guy and would care about him. Is Dean Malenko.
Okay.
Because he's one of the best workers. You go back and watch some of his shit from WCW, it all holds up. He was so crisp. His matches made so much sense. He wasn't a big guy, but you believed that he could hurt you. And just the way he would put on that clover leaf, where I remember he did it to Alito one time, and he lifted her up and stepped over. I thought it was great. Dean Malenko, awesome. Imagine he was around now, he'd be at now that there's this AEW, it doesn't matter if you're under 6'5", you can still be a champ. Dean Malenko would be a top level guy. Yeah, maybe not for the promo, but he'd be much higher up on the card.
Yeah, and it's probably that promo because my first introduction to Dean Malenko was with the New Radicals.
Oh yeah,
and he was like the boring fourth one.
Yeah, right.
And everyone was like, Steve Malenko, he's the man.
Dean Malenko, not Steve Malenko.
I said Dean Malenko.
I think he said Steve Malenko.
No.
I'm like, well, he's underrated. I don't even know his name.
And it's like he's the man, he's the guy. But he's not showing.
He's not. Yeah.
Yeah, like someone like modern times, like Shinsuke Nakamura, where like everyone says like, watch the stuff in Japan. This guy's fantastic, and like he is probably the best wrestler to consistently have terrible WrestleMania matches.
Yeah,
like out there, like
fault. Man, I was at a Wrestle Kingdom when he worked with Ibushi. It was the same atmosphere as Rock and Hogan. It was, and not just because it wasn't just because of the characters. It was the work. Like,
and I can understand that, like with Malenko, if you weren't right there in the middle of WCW when he was at his hot streak, he's just that guy.
But even then, he was like lower mid card.
Okay.
He was cruiserweight. He was never billed as anything big. He was in the Horsemen for a bit, but never a guy that got pushed. But everyone respected him, and some of his matches are great. Like everything holds up. Okay,
I think that's fair enough. Number 9, I think you're not going to be too bothered by.
Okay.
It's the Iconics. The two Australian women that Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. They were 2 of the funniest wrestlers ever.
Okay.
What they did, they were so entertaining in the ring. And I really love the way that, like, the way they wrestled, like, they would always be, like, shouting at each other, talking to each other, being like, oh no, I need to get this, and, like, their whole match from start to finish, there was a performance, there was a, where is my tag team partner, what am I doing, how am I doing this, like, leave me alone, don't put me in this, don't do that. They were on it for the entire match, and I think, that they should have gone a lot more in WWE than they were given the opportunity.
The Iconics at number 9. Okay, moving on. I have nothing to say. Number 9, I pat myself on the back for this one. Barry Horowitz. This guy made every big star throughout the 80s and 90s look like $1 million. He was the best jobber. You know why he was a good jobber? Because he would do that and everybody would boo him. So you know he's going to get dusted, but he's so annoying. You're dying to see it. He looked like Howie Mandel with a beard. He had that curly hair. Such an asshole. Yeah. But he put everybody over.
You know, I can't disagree. I mean, a big reason I can't disagree was that not the same guy, but I was this close to doing Brooklyn Brawler for pretty much the exact same reason.
Yeah.
But like in that period of the 90s, those couple of jobbers whose names you knew. They just made everyone look fantastic. Like, that's why probably squash matches were better back in the day.
Because you kind of, like, especially the Brawler, too. Because you always kind of thought the Brawler could win. Yeah, you could almost have Barry Horowitz slash the Brooklyn Brawler, and they're in the same category. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. All right, who do you got, number 8?
Number 8? Right, now I have to have the caveat because this is a character that has been played by multiple people, and has been, like, face and heel and so forth, and I think the face iteration is kind of reviled.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
Doink the Clown. And specifically the original heel
clown, Matt
Bourne.
Matt
Bourne.
He could work.
Yeah, he could.
And he was evil. He had that evil side to it.
He made kids cry. Like, and even just things like some of the moves, like the fucking whoopee cushion off the top rope. Like how that didn't. But when you watch that now, how that wasn't just crushing the larynx of every person.
But he was doing it to jobbers, so they didn't care. He wasn't doing that to any top guys. He never beat any top guys.
But like Doink the Clown, up until the point where Dink turned up and he started feuding with.
And that wasn't the original guy. No, the original guy had a really dark.
That was the Brooklyn Brawler then, wasn't it? Wasn't it Lombardi that they put inside?
I don't think so.
No.
But the original guy wanted that dark, sinister clown, kind of like Pennywise.
Yeah, that original Doink. I just think that's a character that, like, even now you could almost have that. Like,
you could almost say it's a little bit before his time, right?
Yeah, like if some guy came out, especially something like AEW where they're a bit more into the gimmicks. Just have some guys like, I dress like a clown, I stare at
the Young Bucks
from
do
the
that.
darkness and whatever else. Like,
but that Doink character, you know, when you think back to when he came out, that's when they had all those stupid gimmicks in WWF.
Yeah.
But then Doink was a heel. Right, it was it was. And I remember watching that and being a little bit scared by him. When I was a kid.
I think that's the thing because when you look at those things now, like you think like, oh, he was just like Adam Bomb and Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Tito Montoya, the Portuguese Man of War, and it's like no, he was a
Aldo Montoya.
Just
incredible. He's an idiot.
Right. Yeah. But no, he was like a really creepy character that was a great heel.
I don't hate that one. Okay, my number 8. This is my first WrestleMania main eventer on the list.
Ooh.
King Kong Bundy.
Okay.
King Kong Bundy, you say what you want about him, but for a big guy, he could work. Like that avalanche he did in the corner, when he did it to Hogan, he main evented with Hogan. That guy, when you look at King Kong Bundy, right, he looks like a thumb. He's a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Right? Like that guy only could really be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And that guy drew tons of money, and people don't really. He's never regarded as this great big man.
No, because that would have been the first WWE Championship match at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. WrestleMania 2 in the cage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, for me, my first memory of Bundy is when Ted DiBiase brought him back.
Right.
I think to feud with Taker.
Yeah,
right? That was a bit like he was a bit past his time.
Oh, for sure.
At that point,
they didn't try to push him then at all.
No, but no, I think that's. I think the 20th century has a lot of big men where some of them are like you think of this person fondly, but they're actually just a fat, slow person that just had a lot of charisma.
Right.
And then there's others where it's like, no, this guy was more than just being a big fat guy. This guy had.
If you take the old Bundy character from the late '80s and put him now, he'd work.
Yeah.
Right? He's so ugly. You obviously are gonna hate him. Mean looking. You put him with a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Like they did. Like him and Heenan were just perfect. You couldn't. You. It's perfect. I think he's so underrated, so overlooked. And I love that Mania. I love Mania 2, which is underrated as well.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so number 7 is one of the 2 on my list that I think people might argue that they're not underrated.
Okay.
Because with this person I think is seen now as being one of the great wrestlers.
Okay.
But I think that they were somebody who should have been a multiple title winner. They should have been in main event feuds. They have a particular wrestling piece of lingo that's named after them that I think is incredibly unfair because of how good they are. In my head, it's still because of how old I was when they debuted.
I know who it is.
It's still the 1-2-3 kid.
Yeah, the X-Pac Heat.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think because like X-Pac Heat was a thing that happened in like the 4 or 5 years where I stopped watching wrestling.
Yeah.
So I came back and feel like X-Pac, this is the 1-2-3 kid. I was like, wow, I love the 1-2-3 kid. Oh no, this is the guy that has like the go away, and I'm like, why? He's like the best wrestler.
He slowed down. He had all these neck problems, so
Right.
like back in that time, he slowed down a lot. But yeah, like I watch some of his stuff back now.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Like as 6.
Yeah.
In the NWO, like in Canada, we didn't really I don't know. I didn't get WCW until probably like it was around like '98. So
Right.
the early NWO, I would only be able to catch it the odd time, and he's good. Like X-Pac.
I think
Kid 6.
Yeah, I think even now.
Imagine him now. Imagine him coming in AEW now.
He's one of those people that could work now. Like that guy when he turned up. I mean, even today, I think if we're making top 10 TV, not even top 10 TV title matches, top 10 matches on TV. Bret Hart versus the 1-2-3 Kid for the WWE.
Yeah, that's one of those sneaky.
It's just
sneaky
one of those,
classics.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like that guy just nailed it. Like that guy came into the company and was immediately having to work high-profile feuds with Razor Ramon and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at 19.
I saw a shoot with Scott Hall, and he said during that era when they would bring any new guy in, if you couldn't have a good match with Waltman, with the 1-2-3 Kid, then they knew you weren't that good because he could get a good match. Like
that happened with Jericho, right? After Jericho had his stuff with China, they were like, you get one match of X-Pac. And if it's bad, we know there's nothing to you.
They said I heard them talking about Shane Douglas when he came in as Dean Douglas, and he came in as he's this great guy. He was like the champ in ECW, and couldn't even go with X-Pac, and then that's one of the reasons that kind of doomed his run.
Yeah, and I think now since he's been he's his podcast and people have seen that he's got a fantastic wrestling brain. Like the stuff he has to say about
and
wrestling.
Scott Hall says that all the time in shoots too.
So I think now people are forgiving X-Pac Heat.
Yeah.
But there's a time when people just associate him being like, oh, he was the guy that invented the whole, we're just going to boo for 20 minutes until...
Yeah, I can't even remember what he did that made everybody hate him so much.
Was it just that he just had the same match over and over and over again? But how many wrestlers do that? Like, literally one of the greatest main eventers of all time is famous for doing 5 moves and winning
Most of them are, if you look at it.
Right, it's like...
Okay, I'll give you my number 7. The more modern. A lot of people hate this guy, but I think he's great for what he does. For what he does in his position, is Shawn Spears. I didn't care about him when he was like the number 10 guy. I don't remember.
Oh, it's a Ty Dillinger.
I didn't remember his name then. Didn't give a shit about him then. But since he came to AEW, he's jacked. Like, I like his look. The chairman thing. I think for a mid-card heel, what else can you ask for? That guy's not going to be the champ. You're never going to make him the champ, but you need good mid-card heels.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect how he's the guy that when Jericho has a match, you got to go through him first. He loses against top guys, but he dusts all the other losers. And I thought it was hilarious when he smoked Cody with the chair. I liked him since then.
Yeah.
He's Canadian, so I like Shawn Spears.
That's fair enough. I think he suffers because it always feels like they've got nothing for him, right? Like one day he's with Cody, then he's with Tully Blanchard, then he's with someone else, and then
now he's with MJF, and he's MJF's boy with the chair.
Yeah,
I don't mind him. I think he fills his role perfectly, and not everyone's going to be a champ, but you need role players.
Fair enough. I think that's
he seems safe. I think his matches look good.
Yeah,
you can believe that he could beat someone especially if a random person turns on a match, right? And it's Bryan Danielson versus Shawn Spears. The casual viewer is probably gonna think that Shawn Spears is gonna win. He's bigger. He looks like a wrestler, and you're gonna get into that match, and you're gonna be surprised when Danielson beats him. And it's gonna make him look more legitimate.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's fair.
I think he's needed.
Okay. So my number 6 is another modern wrestler, a wrestler who's around today, a wrestler who I think is hated by a lot of people, and I think is severely unfairly hated because everything he does is exactly what he's asked to do. Whatever role he's given, he plays that role like he method acts that role to perfection. Like he knows what he's doing, and he's really good in the ring. He has 2 of the best moves, one of the best finishes in wrestling today, which sadly got kicked out of for the first time at WrestleMania this year. Baron Corbin. I think that Baron Corbin, he gets unfairly blamed, but he gets unfairly blamed for how bad Raw was. But he was literally doing his role, and he was doing it so well.
And he's annoying. He has an annoying face.
He was doing it so well that people blamed him for Raw being bad. Like it's just
actually and the thing is he can do different characters.
Yeah.
He's proven that.
And his whole arc last year, where he went from being the king, and then he started losing all his money, and he sort of got face reactions of people being like, we love this guy, like, it's so sad that he's having all this hard luck, like, we're kind of behind him. Then he wins money, and is immediately a prick again, then immediately gets us...
And his finish is nice.
End of Days is fantastic.
Yeah, he does have some redeeming qualities. I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
My number 6 is Tully Blanchard.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, Tully was the other guy in the Brainbusters, right? And to be honest, I didn't like him as a kid. And you see him, he kind of reminded me of, you ever go to your friend's house when you're a kid and his parents are divorced and his mom has this asshole boyfriend? He's got 4 kids from 3 different marriages. He drives a Corvette. He smells like Dracar Noir. Just a prick. So I just didn't like him. He just reminded me of an asshole. But like, if you go back and watch, I go back and watch some of his matches from the NWA era, and he was a legitimate U.S. champion. He does like a cool slingshot suplex, great worker. It just in his run on TV, his like national run ended. You know how it ended?
I do not.
So the Brainbusters were when they went to WWF for a little bit. They were NWA guys, Arn Anderson and Tully, and then they made a deal to go back to WCW. But in that time period, Tully got busted for coke, and then WCW didn't want him anymore, and Vince didn't want him anymore either because they'd already got out of their contract, and that ended his national run, basically. Yeah, until AEW brought him back. But as a wrestler in the late 80s, like, he could go in the ring, and he looks like an asshole and pulled it off.
But that's fair enough. I mean, you don't get into the Four Horsemen for no reason.
Yeah.
At least the original four.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay, so number 5. Like you already talked about King Kong Bundy.
Yeah.
As a guy who was huge and for his size could do a lot of impressive things, and people don't accept that. I am going similar, but about 9 years later than King Kong Bundy.
Okay.
Which is Yokozuna.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yokozuna could do super kicks. Yokozuna had a second rope flying finisher. Like, it might not look like a 450 or whatever else, but that guy was leaping off the second rope and not murdering the person that he was landing on.
Every match he was in, you could see him winning. Like, the whole match was getting him off his feet, basically.
Yeah. Just before we were doing this morning, I was watching... It was from, I believe, February 24th, 1994, Raw.
Old school Japanese porn? Oh.
No.
Oh, sorry, okay.
It was the Macho Man challenging Yokozuna for the WWF Championship.
Yeah, you made me watch that match a while ago, and it's pretty awesome.
It's so good. It's so excellent. Like, you had the things of Mr. Fuji, Jim Cornette running the different interferences, Crush at the end.
Yeah, and Cornette was great in that. Yeah.
And just even things, it was like I noticed, like, when they go to commercial and then they come back, and they said that, like, before commercial, Savage took him to the outside. And the whole commercial was Savage going out of the ring, trying to get him in, not being able, going into the ropes to break the count, coming back out, and just the way they were able to work his size and what he could do was just really, really good.
I think a lot of people don't like him because of that title run.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he beat Hogan, so that hurt a lot of people's feelings, and then they never went through with the Luger push, that casket match with The Undertaker. You know, it's still, the ending is still memorable. With the whole coffin thing, but it was a slow match. I think that's probably why he's looked back on as not so. But his match with Brett at Mania, it's like, as for like, what was it, like an 8-minute match? It's not bad.
Yeah, I think that guy technically did 4 matches over the course of his first two WrestleManias. He did double duty 2 years running at WrestleMania.
I guess you could say that.
I know one of them was like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But still. But yeah, I think he's hurt by the fact that by the end of his run, he was too big and too fat to do anything.
Yeah.
But that opening few years, like from debuting to the end of being a tag team with Owen Hart.
He was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently watched like an Owen Hart Yokozuna match, and Yoko was doing like running ass bumps at the guys in the corner. Yeah, I'll give you that one. He was pretty good. All right, my number 5. I don't even really know why, but 6-year-old me absolutely loved this guy. His LGN toy, you know, the big plastic. Do you have those in England? Those big plastic wrestling toys?
No, but I can imagine what you're talking about. Yeah.
The Honky Tonk Man.
Okay.
The Honky Tonk Man had legitimately one of the greatest intercontinental runs. He was, as a worker, he's all right. Like, he's not hurting people.
Yeah.
But he had a character and the face that you wanted to hit.
I get that. He was sort of in a very different way. He was sort of the prototype to the JBL WWE champion on SmackDown. That one year
he should lose.
Every single match JBL had, you were like, he didn't deserve to win that. Didn't deserve to win that. Honky Tonk did not deserve to win a single match.
I think every time he won was just he cheated. Yeah. He could dust job. He could beat Barry Horowitz. Yeah. But like besides that, he was cheating or it was a count out or something with Jimmy Hart. Yeah. I think he was great, and he was actually in both of our favorite wrestler, Macho Man, really instrumental in Macho Man's career. Yeah. Because the Saturday Night's Main Event, where there was a Saturday Night's Main Event before WrestleMania 4, and they wanted Savage to win the Intercontinental belt back from Honky. Yeah. And Honky Tonk Man refused because he felt like it was going to hurt his money, and he refused to drop the IC belt on TV on that, like, you know, those Saturday Night's Main Events. There's like 10 million people watching those. It might have been the same show that Hogan and Andre did that title change. It might have been on that one.
That sounds like it's possible, yeah.
And he hits Savage with the guitar. The Hart Foundation are holding him. He hits Savage with a guitar. Elizabeth brings Hogan out. So if Honky didn't refuse to drop the IC belt, Savage might have never became champion then.
And that could have been because like when you look at Savage, like what happened in WrestleMania 4 literally you can see that going all the way through to WrestleMania 8.
Imagine,
Like,
he may have
that whole
never,
trajectory.
would Savage have ever been looked at as a main event guy because he wasn't that big, and back then you had to be.
Exactly. Maybe DiBiase becomes champion.
Honky's run wasn't that long, but that couple years there, he drew heat, he drew a lot of money, and him refusing to drop the belt to Savage set us up on some of the greatest wrestling moments we've ever had. So Honky Tonk Man, number 5.
Fair enough. Okay, so number 4 is a bit of a cheat because I have 2 wrestlers and they weren't a tag team. They weren't part of the same faction.
The Conquistadors?
No. But they're 2 people that I think fill exactly the same description of they are 2 female wrestlers decades before their time. Like even pre-Attitude Era. Like these were 2 women who could go, that had fantastic personalities, could mix it with men, mix it with women. Both of them, actually, if you really look at them, they both could have just done the whole let's just be pretty and be valets, but they chose to do characters instead.
Mae Young?
No. Yeah. Sensational Sherry and Luna Vachon.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a step back 3 right there. Sherry, I would say I prefer Sherry over Luna. But though they were like Luna's from a wrestling family.
Yeah.
Oh, some of those. I don't know if you've ever seen it. This is a deep cut. Go back and find Tenryu versus Savage in Tokyo. It's just like when WWE rarely ever did co-branded shows in Japan. But Tenryu was like their big guy back then. And I just saw this match a while ago. And Sherry's manager work.
Yeah.
It's a masterclass in being a female valet.
It's fantastic. And she would bump. She could bump off the guys, bump off the women. Like
Hogan always beat her up. And I remember even like as a kid being like, we're supposed to cheer Hogan and he's beating up a woman, but like it's Sherry, so it's okay. He's still a good old American boy.
Yeah. And both of them, because both of them could have made more money by just being like, let's just put on nicer makeup, make our hair look nice, get a push-up bra, and just walk along with the Ultimate Warriors and Hulk Hogan's of this time, be on the calendars, be on the lunch boxes.
They weren't pretty enough for that. They had to be heels.
But they just worked. They were fantastic. Their characters, the way they worked.
They were hateable. They were so hateable. Like they were like, think about it. When they were trying to get Shawn Michaels over as a heel, he was with both of them at different times. He went from Sherry to Luna.
Yeah. And
Sherry got that Savage heel character over. Sherry was. You know what? If we do a manager list, she's gonna be on it.
She's gotta be. Yeah.
Unbelievable. What a talent.
Yeah. And I just couldn't. I was like, I think both of these people deserve to be on this list. And I just felt that...
It's cheating, but...
But I also felt if I put them both in different positions, we just have this conversation twice.
Yeah, okay. So, I'll give you that one. It's your show. I'll let you do it. Yeah. Number 4. I'm going to go modern, Miro. And I was never a Rusev guy.
Right.
I didn't see it. The whole Rusev Day thing just didn't do it for me. I don't for whatever reason, I don't like many wrestlers that don't wear shoes. Yokozuna, Umaga, it's like those guys, for whatever reason, I can accept it. But I hated that he didn't wear shoes. But then when he went to AEW, and when he had that run as the TNT champion as Miro, like the guy is a beast. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the different look. He got a bit more jacked. I like the Muay Thai shorts, the shaved head. This guy could absolutely be a top heel. That's why maybe I didn't like the whole Rusev thing as the face.
Right.
But this guy's a big, nasty heel. If this guy was around back in the 80s, he would have had a run with Hogan for sure. Right? He wouldn't have beat him, but he'd have had like a 6-month house show run with Hogan because he's believable. And is he the kind of guy that's going to get pushed in AEW? I'm not really sure, but WWE could bring him back if they bring him back with this character.
I can see that. I agree. I thought Rusev was great. I mean, I really like the Rusev Day stuff because I do like a lot more of the
silly
comedy shtick that
marky shit. Yeah.
I think when WWE does comedy well, they do it very well. Just when they do it badly, they do it worse than even the worst Adam Sandler film.
And they usually do bad comedy 98% of the time, I would say.
Well, I'd say more like 71% of the time.
Oh, God.
Anyway, let's go on to number 3.
Top 3.
Yeah, so my number 3 is somebody who I think these days is looked upon for his solo run.
Okay.
Because he's been a main eventer in like 3 different companies at this point. But I'm more thinking about the fact of like people forget just how fantastic a wrestler he was back in his tag team days with his brother, which is Scott Steiner.
Yeah,
Steiner brothers.
that's a good one. I think I was going to put him on the... I thought maybe he's... Yeah, but he was...
When he was the Steiner brothers, like that guy was a 300-pound man doing Hurricane Ranas and top rope moves.
And I heard that they hurt people like with those suplex.
Yeah.
They were so... And that, have you ever seen the... I think it's called the Steiner Driver.
Yeah.
There's a match. You can find this match on like wherever you want to find it. The Steiner brothers versus Owen and Brett. It was before... the Royal Rumble where Owen turns on Brett and they were a tag team for a bit.
Yeah.
And then it was like near the end of the Steiners run. It is an awesome match. He hits Owen with that Steiner driver.
They're like you watch them and it's like I feel like someone like Alpha Academy or World's Greatest Tag Team. They must have just grown up just watching Steiner Brothers matches. Like they're just that idea of like.
And when he turned into Big Papa Pump. I loved it when he was Big Papa Pump.
Yeah. Oh no, and I think there's a lot to be said about his solo run, but I think the fact that people look at it, especially when it started being WWE.
Yeah, he
got too big and too slow and started getting hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's why I have Scott Steiner.
And he's an older guy too. If you think about when he came in around like WrestleMania 19.
Yeah.
They were more about the work rate then, and they put him with Triple H. Yeah. That's not going to work.
Exactly. And that's why I have Scott Steiner as opposed to the Steiner brothers, because Rick Steiner, I don't think ever had any part of his solo career that made people forget how good they were as a tag team. And
when they were a tag team, I always thought that he was the main guy, like Rick Steiner.
Yeah.
Because he had the headgear. And
yes, he looked like a wrestler. He looked like an Olympic wrestler.
But when he first came in NWA, he was kind of like he looked like an Olympic wrestler, but he was crazy.
Yeah.
So he was in the business before Scott, and then Scott Steiner got in.
And I think my first memory of the Steiner brothers, I think it was when they were feuding with the Quebecers, and the Quebecers just kept cheating, and because they won with like Quebec mountain rules or something, which was weird,
I did not appreciate the Quebecers, the Mounties. I didn't find any of that.
No,
I didn't like any. I hated them too. So I would have been cheering for the Steiner brothers.
That's fair enough. And let's say Scott Steiner, I think he is a great tag team wrestler, an underappreciated technical wrestler that people now only remember for the big slow guy that does
he really. It's too bad he couldn't have kept that old style and mixed it in. Yeah, because he was great. Okay, my number 3 here, another guy who started off as a tag team wrestler, Shelton Benjamin. Mm-hmm. That guy, he didn't have the personality, so to speak. We don't really know, but he's not going out there and cutting entertaining promos. But they just didn't find the right fit for this guy, I don't think. I think they tried, but they didn't get it. And how close would have this guy been? Like, I always thought he should have been the cocky athlete with a suit, like kind of like at that time Terrell Owens. I don't think you know much about American football.
No,
but
I do not.
Terrell Owens was this hotshot wide receiver. I always thought that Shelton Benjamin should have been like the Terrell Owens of wrestling, and at that time it would have made so much sense. You just needed to, because Terrell Owens had this asshole agent. All they needed was like an asshole sports agent to go with Shelton.
Yeah. Well, they gave him Mama instead.
Yeah, like so stupid. At that time, that's exactly what you could have been doing with him.
He was going toe to toe with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, right? When they split up the world's greatest tag team,
he beat Triple H.
Yeah, and then with Shawn Michaels, because now he's like famous for just a super kick that he got hit by.
Yeah, and by that time, Shelton was a mid-card guy that's gonna make. He was basically enhancement talent.
Yeah,
who you might put the Intercontinental title on if you had to.
He was the guy you put into Money in the Bank type matches
to do a spot.
He just made it look fantastic.
To do one spot, and that guy could have been a much better pro wrestler, not a spot monkey.
Yeah,
I think that.
Do you know
Shelton could have been Shelton could have been huge, and I think you could have done him as a baby face. I would have done it as the heel, but You know, Shelton could have been a lot. He could have been great.
I considered Shelton. I actually also considered Charlie Haas. Charlie Haas came closer than Benjamin to my list, not because I think Haas is better, but because I think people at least when they think about Shelton Benjamin, they think that guy was a great wrestler, didn't have a personality.
Right.
Whereas I think Charlie Haas gets the great wrestler part of Charlie Haas also gets forgotten.
Yeah, I would imagine, because I think he just wasn't around long enough.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I thought of him, but I don't know if I'd have to go back and watch those matches to see if he was a really good wrestler. So
that's fair.
I can't say he's underrated because he just didn't have enough. Shelton had it. He just needed a better gimmick. He needed a mouthpiece.
Yeah, and he never got it.
Yeah,
and he got been around at that time.
Yeah, there's so many things they could have done with him, and I think they really, really missed the boat on Shelton Benjamin.
I think that's very fair. Number 2 is on my list because A, I truly believe it, and B, the reason it's on my list is because people like you exist. And by that, I mean people that don't understand how goddamn good The Miz is at what he does.
I'm not doing the show anymore.
The Miz is...
He's number fucking 2 on your list?
Yeah, he's number 2. The Miz is excellent. The Miz gets psychology. The Miz gets how to tell a story. The Miz does anything. The Miz is someone that you can put him in the main event of WrestleMania and he can feel like he's part of that.
He feels like a soap opera actor to me. You
can put him in a nothing feud at the low card and he still feels part of it. He works in every part of the card.
He makes wrestling look so fake to me. I know there's bigger, okay, Marco Stunt obviously makes everything look super fake, or fucking Danhausen, those idiots. But like, The Miz is an idiot.
See, I
hate him.
Yeah.
I hate the way he wrestles. I hate everything. I hate his moveset. I hate his face. I hate his wife. I fucking hate The Miz.
The Miz, I just think that the guy is consistently getting better. He knows
he's consistently getting worse. He got better from nothing, and then I think it's a low peak. And this is why he's on the list because I understand there are so many people that feel the way you do, that feel this whole sense people
of like,
who actually are right and have correct opinions.
You and Jim Cornette. But anyway, we're not going to agree on this one.
No, we're not.
So
we're not at all. I might not do this show anymore after that one. But I think my number 2, you might not like my number 2.
Okay.
Kevin Nash.
Okay.
Kevin Nash, because...
Kevin Nash all the way from Diesel to Kevin Nash, or Kevin Nash is in NWO onwards?
Okay, yeah, I guess for everyone in general, because people even his championship run, it didn't draw. He probably the push happened a bit too soon. It was also like a dead era.
Right.
Wrestling was just down in general. So everyone's he didn't draw as champ. Well, wrestling wasn't really drawing then anyways. And it's really not even necessarily just about that. Everyone talks about he's big lazy and all this stuff. And yeah, of course, by the end of his run. But if you go back and watch early WCW, he was bumping like crazy. Some of his matches with the Steiners and Harlem Heat. Like, Nash went into WCW, right? He was top guy in WWF. And he didn't care. He went into WCW and just played a role, too. They were still feeding for the guys like Luger and Sting and getting those guys over. I think Kevin Nash also has a great wrestling mind. I think he proves that less is more a lot of the time when it comes to moves. And I think his selling and his bumping, way underrated. And also what he meant to wrestling. Like if you think about some of the big things from that really hot era, Kevin Nash was involved with a lot of that. And he was a star. And he drew more in the NWO. I'm not going to say he drew as champ, but he drew money in the NWO, and the NWO never would have worked at all if it wasn't for Hall and Nash.
Like you're lucky in the sense of like when I was getting into wrestling, one of the big things that was happening around that time was Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels with Diesel as the bodyguard, and at that point, like Diesel, that was the point where Diesel was like the Roman Reigns before Roman Reigns started to get like
a big
shat
push.
upon. Like, like when
he was in the Shield, when he was like
Roman Reigns in the Shield, like when Batista won the Royal Rumble, and everyone wanted it to be Reigns because Reigns was the big cool guy from the Shield. They didn't want Batista. I had that part of Diesel. Like people were like, Diesel, this is the guy. Like before he won the title, like being like, this guy's cool. When he won the title off Backlund, it was like that's a cool moment. The big guy.
So you liked him. You liked that.
So yeah, I like that. I think people now, because when you say like all the big moments of the NWO are Kevin Nash, when you think of all of the absolute worst decisions in WCW, they may not have been his decision, but he's front and center on the screen with them. He was doing the finger poke. He was ending the streak of Goldberg.
Yeah.
He was...
But that's bad booking. Like.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's easy to look at bad booking and go, all the bad booking is around this guy, so therefore this guy is the problem.
Yeah, Kevin Nash even says none of that. Like, he wasn't even the booker then, and none of it was...
Yeah. And again, Roman Reigns is another great example of that. That Roman Reigns spent 3 or 4 years being hated by everyone because of
stupid
decisions
promos,
made, and it was all written for him.
Yeah,
He wasn't doing it, and now that he's got a bit more control and is doing this new thing, people love him now.
Because you're seeing what was there.
Yeah, and
bad booking can crush people.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I think also it's hard because when you're in a group that contains contains Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan, you're not going to out charisma Hulk Hogan, and you're not going to out wrestle Scott Hall.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's not going to be the best at anything in that group.
But he added a lot of cool.
Doesn't mean he's bad. Doesn't mean he's bad. Right?
Yeah, I think he added validity to the group too. Like Hogan, at that time. Okay, I watched a few Nitros right before the heel turn, and Hogan was getting booed in WCW.
Yeah.
Like the Southern fans didn't like him, and if it wasn't for Nash and Hall, they gave Hogan the cool rub.
Yeah.
You know, and like.
Yeah.
Because Hogan was Hogan. He was an old man.
But that's the thing, right? Sometimes when you are the big face on top of a company, and it's your company and you're the face of that company, you don't realize that if you actually want to stay on top, become the bad guy. Become the people that people hate, and people want to see you there more. If you're too scared to do that change, then you end up being what Hulk Hogan could have been if he hadn't have done that.
Just boring and just the same old shit.
Yeah.
And you always got to change.
Okay, so let's do very quick honorable mentions.
Okay.
So I've got 3.
Okay.
I have Kevin Owens, who...
Yeah, I can see that.
Just got knocked off the list because that's the thing. That's why he didn't quite make it. I was like, maybe he's rated enough to not be underrated.
Yeah.
But I think he's so damn good that people rate him as like an 8 out of 10 wrestler when I think he's a 9.5.
Okay.
Umaga.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because that guy could go. And when you think that guy was like that godforsaken idiot Rosie in 3 Minute Warning that couldn't do a thing.
Rosie was his brother. He was the other guy.
The other guy. Well, he wasn't even Rosie.
Yeah, he was the other. He was the guy. I don't know. I don't remember what his name was.
Yeah, in the same way that Rikishi was like one of the head shrinkers. It's like, how did that be a thing?
Yeah.
And the third one I had, which was so close, this guy's probably my number 11, is Marty Jannetty. Because Marty Jannetty, that period from being in the Rockers until he got kicked out the first time when the drugs took over, he was fantastic. He was almost as good as Shawn Michaels.
I was listening to a thing the other day that apparently back in those days when they were talking about, okay, we'll break up the Rockers eventually, the Office thought that Jannetty was going to be the star, not Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like nowadays, I think the fact that whenever a tag team breaks up, you call the bad one the Jannetty,
of course.
failure the Jannetty, and it's like, I think people don't realize that's because Jannetty failed as a singles competitor because he went off the rails and became
his personal life. Yeah,
it wasn't because Shawn Michaels was a good wrestler and Jannetty was a bad wrestler. Jannetty was a fantastic wrestler.
Shawn was just exceptional and he got a good push, and Jannetty did too many drugs.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody in 1990s wrestling not called Bret Hart would have been the Marty Jannetty of the Rockers if Shawn Michaels was their tag team partner.
Fair enough. My honorable mentions, I had Chris Candido.
Okay.
More so that he didn't get riddled with STDs being married to Tammy Stitch. So that's one thing. I had Lex Luger because I always thought Luger was kind of shit and like poor man's Hogan and just, dull. But if I go back and watch some of his stuff, his matches with Flair, they were good. When there's a few times where he was a heel, and I love him as a heel. Early Luger as a heel.
Narcissist Lex Luger.
No, like WCW
Right,
Lex
okay.
Luger. There. You know what? When there's an interview, WrestleMania 8, one of my favorite shows. He was joining the Vince had a bodybuilding federation, the WBF.
Yeah, 'cause that's what he was joined for, right? He didn't join to be a wrestler.
Yeah, because I think he was still maybe working for WCW, but he was allowed to do bodybuilding. I can't remember what it was. There's some weird contract dispute. But on that show, he does an interview from his house with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, and he rips on Gorilla Monsoon, and he's just total heel. And it was how was that not the character they brought in? They should have just brought in the total package with Bobby Heenan. Don't think about anything else.
Yeah.
And just do the total package with Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
Put him up against him and Hogan at that time would have been big money.
Yeah.
Big money. That would have been great.
I mean,
so I think
if Hogan and Warrior could put on a match that people enjoy, then Hogan and Luger can put on a match that people enjoy.
Especially back then. And my other honorable mention would be Terry Funk, just because I feel like maybe a lot of people just remember him as this hardcore old man.
Yeah, I mean, if you're about 5 years younger than us, you remind him he's the weird man that put a stocking on his head, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if you go back and watch his early '80s stuff, he was just a badass heel.
Yeah.
And his feud with Flair, anyone in the southern states who was big, and they'd be like, "Oh, Terry Funk." Everyone knows Terry Funk is great. But I would say for fans that didn't watch a lot of the southern stuff, Terry Funk, his feud with Flair at Great American Bash '89, and even the match he had a staph infection in his elbow. He shouldn't have been wrestling, and the guy could bump, and he was mean, and I think Terry Funk was great.
He was the Mick Foley before Mick Foley, right?
But he's different though. If you put him in that as just looking at him as a hardcore wrestler, you can say that. But I say he's underrated because before he turned into the hardcore guy, he was just a good wrestler and a good heel and hateable and believable. Hateable and believable.
Yeah.
What more do you want from a heel? Be ugly, be hateable, and be believable.
That's fair enough. Okay, number one. You're going to be glad to know that number one is not going to upset you as much as number two did.
I can't imagine it would.
Number one is a WrestleMania main eventer. And I think he's someone that people will look at as being I think if someone said rank these 10 people as who are the best wrestlers, he would be considered the best wrestler on the list.
Okay.
So therefore,
WrestleMania main event.
I think some people might consider him to be not underrated, but I think the fact that this guy was never a world champion, the fact that this guy was not main eventing WrestleManias against non-American football players.
I like this one. I can't believe I didn't have him.
I think that when you talk about best big men of all time, best high flyers of all time,
I
best
can't believe
heels of
I
all
didn't
time,
have him.
Bam Bam Bigelow is because when people talk most underrated wrestlers, they talk about your Roddy Pipers, your Ted DiBiase's, your
the guys who never were champs,
guys who weren't champions, but they were in the main events. They had the events. People talk of them and go these guys were so good. People don't put Bam Bam Bigelow on that list.
I can't believe I didn't have him.
And
That's a great one.
he should be on that list.
Oh, absolutely. My list is an embarrassment now that I missed him because he was great. Just the look and the way he could work. I went back and watched some of his ECW stuff, and that was in the late '90s. He was at WrestleMania 4, and he was even in NWA stuff earlier than that. Yeah. That guy had such a run. Yeah, he was fucking awesome.
He's a 300+ pound man that did a flying headbutt as a finish.
And a moonsault.
Yeah.
And that look. Oh, yeah. Bam Bam was fucking awesome. Great number one. I think my number one is really good too, though.
Yeah.
The Dynamite Kid.
Yeah, okay.
You have to know who that is. He's English. The Dynamite Kid was the small guy in the British Bulldogs. This guy is the reason that we got small cruiserweight wrestlers that became stars. The Jerichos, the Benoits, the Lance Storms. Now, Pac in Pac, whatever is fucking the bastard in AEW. Those guys are in wrestling because of the Dynamite Kid.
Oh,
unfucking believable at selling, a small guy that you could still be like, I wouldn't fuck with this guy. He's the one who invented basically, or at least made it famous, the snap suplex. Everything that guy did was perfect.
That's actually a really good shout. He is, he what he could do in the ring was, again, light years ahead of his time.
So, yeah, exactly. He hurt him, I think he went too hard and hurt himself.
Oh, no, I mean, I think the problem he had was that when the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith is the more sober one in your tag team,
you're in trouble.
Then, yes.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
It's, but no, he is fantastic. Like, I didn't realize just how good he was at that stuff until, again, Dark Side of the Ring did their thing on him.
Yeah.
And you realized, like, not only is he like this person that is famous for going off the rails, but he's also famous for being a fantastic wrestler.
If this guy could have, kept his life together and kept his body together, at that point, in the 80s, I don't know if he ever would have got pushed, but if he could have been around in that in that early 90s when Brett started getting pushed, like imagine we had Dynamite Kid Brett, Dynamite Kid Shawn Michaels, maybe a Dynamite Kid Savage match.
Yeah. Oh, it could have been amazing.
Epic.
Like, if he could have just been around when WWE didn't start expecting everybody to look like a Hulk Hogan or an Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, because Dynamite Kid was one of the guys that brought the idea of work rate and working matches with lots of moves and his charisma was his ability to make things look so real and painful.
That's it's a Heart Dungeon guy, right? Like Stampede Wrestling.
I think so.
Yeah. So, but no, that's a really good shout. Yeah. Never would have entered my head. Just me sitting in a room on my own trying to think of wrestlers. But
not very nationalistic of you.
Well, I mean, sometimes we have to accept that there are wrestlers outside of the UK.
Yeah.
14, 15, 16 was Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy, and the man's man, William Regal. But actually, William Regal was a really good shout on this list. We missed a few here, but Bam Bam. I think Bam Bam and Dynamite Kid being at the top. I think those are good.
You can't beat that.
Those are good shouts, but as always, there's hundreds and hundreds of wrestlers out there, and so many underrated wrestlers that gave more to the industry than maybe they're appreciated for. So if you have your own opinions, please let us know. Tell us where we're right, tell us where we're wrong. Tell him that The Miz is fantastic so that he can learn that. And as always, this has been the Charlie West Show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. 잘 등장되는 내 초원이 돼. 난 너의 꿈속의 Freddy 꿈 깨는 게 소원이 돼. Click clack and bang bang 난 사랑하듯이 랩해. 내 목표 설정이냐 난 내 가요계 전부 대패. 이 랩 게임 식사는 차차로 개뻥이야 나 freshman 나 freshman 군대 형님들께 respect 졸업장으로 대신해. 내 부부는 긴 보통 형보다 더 의리의리해. 네 구들 무리무리해서 덤벼봤자 무리네. I'm not trying to 좋자 너희들에게는 사치지. 아무리 머리를 써봤자 너희는 김일 계속 박치지. 웃기지 쌈이 없이 또 묻히지. I'm sick man 내 직업병 이건 붙이지. 나 이기고 싶다면 또 다른 날 또 하나 고쳐 나도 바로 날
Welcome to the jungle, 배우다 정글의 법